This is Andrew Kurtz, and I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to watch this video. Today I just wanted to take just a few minutes and share with you some information about features we've added that has been found to be very useful to people using MICROS systems. And specifically there are two features that I want to make sure you're aware of that Vigilix now supports. So the first one is around monitoring for degraded RAIDs on the HP 5700 and 5800s that we find are typically used as the servers in a res environment. These are not server class machines. They don't have RAID monitoring capabilities like a true server class system. Instead, they're using something known as the Intel Matrix RAID, which is a desktop level RAID device. And while the degradation of the RAID, in other words, if you have the RAID set up with two drives mirroring each other and one of them fails, the system still functions, and if you are on that computer, you might know that the RAID has degraded. But the problem is, if you are the support organization for that and you don't look at the system, you don't know that one of those drives is no longer functioning properly, the RAID's degraded, and if the other drive fails, then you now have a down system. And obviously the objective of having a RAID set up is to have redundancy. So we have built a template, the Intel Matrix RAID monitoring template, that monitors the health of a RAID system, specifically any Intel Matrix RAID system, but we've found these are on almost every HP 5700 and 5800. Monitors the health, and if the RAID gets degraded, if one of the drive fails or if something breaks with the RAID, it will generate an alert and simply tell you that the RAID's degraded, and it will tell you where and what server and where it's degraded, and then you can take appropriate action to schedule getting the failed drive replaced or fixing the degraded RAID so that the system still has redundant hard drives. So that's one feature that for folks who know about it and are using it, they found it to be very helpful and very reliable in identifying RAID failures. Unrelated, another feature that we've created that has been found to be very useful, the people who are using it love its reliability and its ease of use, is we've built a solution specifically around the transfer of files in a Res Enterprise Manager environment, so in the EM environment. In an EM environment, you have a centralized EM server that will allow you to centrally manage prices and menu items. That generates a file that needs to go out to stores, and then the stores will process that data and that information will come back to the EM server so you can see success or failure. There is the need to move those files from the central server to the stores and from the stores back to the central server in a reliable way. And so we've leveraged the fact that a Vigilix agent can be placed on the EM server at each of the stores on the server, and that infrastructure can be leveraged to move these files. So what's necessary to make that happen is you need to map Vigilix agents to EM stores and the EM server. So the first thing you need to do is you need to tell Vigilix which agent is the EM server. So you'll select from a drop-down, you will select a Vigilix agent as the EM server, and you will also specify where on that server it would find files to send and the files to receive directory and what commands it should execute upon receiving a file. Likewise, you'll also specify default settings for the stores. Now you can override these for each individual store, but instead of having to type them in each time, you can specify a default, and when you add a new store, these defaults will automatically get populated. So after setting up the server, you then need to go and you do an import from the EM product. There's the ability to import the stores, and then you have to map stores from EM to Vigilix agents. So Vigilix understands in this case that store 25 is the agent that is the MICROS PC 25 agent. And so once that mapping is done, Vigilix knows when EM wants to send something to store 25, it knows which agent to send it to. And you'll notice here the defaults that we had come in. In this case, we've had to override them because it's not an F drive, it's now a D drive. So once this is configured, once you've set this mapping up of this Vigilix agent is the EM server and these Vigilix agents represent the stores and are mapped to the stores in EM, Vigilix will automatically be monitoring both at the EM server and each of the stores the send and receive directories, and will move the files and execute the commands specified to process those files for EM, and it will do it in real time. And so as changes are made, those files will get moved out. And there's a history so you can see what's happening. So in this case, we're looking at a history of movement to store 10. And you can see the status of all the files, when they were processed, when they were completed. And you can see the timing of all of that. So for instance, in this very top one, you'll notice we started this particular file, S1, D4, C1, P652. It started at 8:41. The file was detected and transfer was initiated. 8:42, we were waiting the processing of that file, and by 8:42:40, the file had been successfully processed. So you can look at all of the movement from a store, all of the movement to a store. You can look at a particular date range of everything. You have the ability to pull up, if you want to see the history of one file, you can see the history of one file. Once again, in this case, we specified a single file and can see that the transfer was initiated at 9:04:58 a.m. and by 9:06:27 it was successfully processed. You have the ability to look for particular statuses. So if you want to see files that had processing errors, you can see that. So the EM file transfer functionality is a separate module that is not part of the standard POS Sentry. It is a separate module that can be provided to either an enterprise, or if you are a reseller or a solution provider, then you can set up a different EM network, basically EM server and stores, for each of your customers where it's relevant. So we have the ability for either an enterprise to set up one network, or for solution providers to deliver file transfer solution to all of their customers. So I hope you found this information valuable. A lot of people don't know that we have that functionality, and we just simply wanted to make you aware that it was available. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'd be glad to talk to you about it in more detail.